Hello, and I can see you, which is a novelty.
Yeah.
Welcome. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Where are you currently? At home?
Yeah, I'm in Sheffield. I've got a
In
flat.
Shef-
I'm living here for like the last year and a bit.
What's that like? I mean, being a Scotsman in England. You can be honest.
Sometimes, like it's. I've got some like Scottish shows that I like watching, just so you hear the accent. Because sometimes you do miss it a bit. But I mean, it's okay. It's a funny one where Edinburgh is like by far the nicest city I've actually been to. Like even with like traveling for the comps and stuff, like I absolutely love just being there and going on walks and stuff, which I never do anywhere else. But the climbing just sucks so hard. Like the closest rock's like 2 hours away, and I've kind of done the stuff that was close by. So it's like kind of need to be in Sheffield for training and for actually getting out.
Makes sense, and I guess there's a reason why Sheffield has a lot of climbers.
Yeah, I mean, having obviously the Peak District so close, like cracks within like 20 minutes, 10 minutes, and then having like, what are there, like 5 climbing walls now, I think. So yeah, it's really good.
But actually, I have a couple of questions about that. I was thinking about taking them later on, but since we're there, the climbing in Britain,
Yeah.
is it really good or is it just nice packaging?
So this actually we were kind of having this debate when we were out at the end of the trip in the north of the Czech Republic, because kind of like I've always heard, and it's always kind of people always going about the Gritstone and the Peak District being the the best rock, and like the climbing being the best. And I kind of just I don't know why, but naively I just kind of thought, oh well, there just mustn't really be like Gritstone climbing really elsewhere. Although it's like known for the sandstone, there was parts of it that were definitely like really good grit. And we were just looking at these problems and like thinking, hang on a minute, have we had it wrong this whole time? Like grit climbing actually not in the UK. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know, because like the majority of the climbing in the UK isn't great. Like for sport climbing, we've got Malham Cove, which is incredible, but it's kind of after that it kind of like drops off really fast. I guess like the peak grit at least is like it is actually, there are good climbs and it is good. So yeah, I think without that it would be a bit rubbish really.
But you got a lot of famous routes and problems. If you look at how much rock there actually is.
There is a lot of rock and there are good problems, but a lot of the time it'll be like what's meant to be the best 8B boulder in the UK is in Wales, Isles of Wonder, which I did last year. It's really good, but it is like one boulder, that's it. There's like maybe a 70 on the side of it, and that's all there is. And it's like an hour at least walking up a hill. So you like walk all the way there, you do like one boulder, like cool, right, let's go back home. Whereas it's kind of, the grit at least is a lot more like condensed into areas, whereas as soon as you kind of go other places, quite often you end up going somewhere doing like a problem that you want to do, and then you have to go somewhere else, which isn't ideal.
So like gritstone climbing, is that a style and rock type that you really prefer, or is it just no?
No, I don't get on with it that well. Which yeah, I mean most people love it, whereas I'm far more like limestone sort of style, like actual just having holds, basic stuff. Like that gets like just really difficult moves, gets me really excited. Like I still like grit and like certain problems, but I wouldn't get really psyched to just go for a day of basically getting on tiny little pebbles and like pecking my way up an arete or slab. Like that's more of like I need to be specifically psyched for the problem. Whereas so I spend most of my time at Raventor, which it's kind of like a weird one where there's every time you go you're almost guaranteed that you'll see like up to like 10 people that you know really well, because we all just, there's like a bunch of people that just go to Raventor really, whereas everyone else, if it's good weather, will be out in the grit or doing different things. So it's kind of like, I guess, a bit of a funny crowd of people that just want to do a different style of climbing from what most do.
It actually brings me to another late question, but do you if you had to choose between pure lines or pure moves?
Oh, pure moves, 100%. So like one of the best bouldering areas in the UK, like for like condensed, especially hard bouldering, I guess more only hard bouldering, but it's Dumbarton Rock in Glasgow. Like the climbing itself is absolutely incredible. Like the problems are so 3D. The moves are really good. I think the rock's actually really nice, but you know it's not like especially historically, it's a lot nicer now. To be fair, but it's been in like quite a rough area of a city, and it's not like the nicest place. You don't really feel like you're out in the wilderness. You know, you're like looking over all this industrial sites. It gets a lot of hate, I guess, but actually the climbing's amazing. Yeah, I'm definitely more on the actual climbing rather than like of course, if it looked amazing too, that would be cool, but I don't really need that, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you can choose, you want the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
But it's not very often you get that. But I think now we should maybe go from the start. I mean, recently you went to the Czech Republic. Also, a lot of rock there looks kind of chossy, I must say. Not much in terms of lines sometimes. Especially, what's that place called with where you boulder on the it's actually a root crag, but there are boulders.
Yeah. So there's a couple sectors, but it's all in the Moravian Karst area. And then the two main sectors that I was at was Holstein, or that's one of the areas which has a couple sectors in it, and then the other one is Slope. And yeah, it's very similar, I guess, in like line sense to Raventor in the UK, where basically well, there's routes going up from all of it, but at the bottom we just add in boulders to have more stuff to do, I guess. And Slope is quite similar to Raventor in style, you know, quite like ratty edges and basic just pulling mostly. Whereas Holstein, actually, what kind of completely shocked me and I wasn't expecting is the climbing is way more like you'd expect on other rock types. So lots of slopers, lots of pinches. All the crimps, most of them are actually kind of slightly sloping, so they're more like bad edges. And it means it's way more technical, and you need to
Sounds like a nightmare. That, I mean, slopey and pinchy limestone.
It's like kind of in a way like sandstone. Like if you have like a fine sandstone where it's not that grippy, but you have to like just basically have the movements right, and you just stick between the holds. It works a lot like that. And actually, the climbing was really good, like really incredible climbing there. I was like, I couldn't believe like how good it was. And for sure, a lot of the like lines of the boulders link together, but the actual moves in them are really good.
You went to the Czech Republic. It's Adam's home ground, really, and it's his game, and you beat him at his own game.
I don't think I beat him. I mean, like more, I went and repeated some of the things that he's put up. I mean,
of course.
So in the bouldering, for sure, I definitely had like a good trip and managed to take quite a lot. But there's still three HC plus boulders, which I put a little bit of work into some of them, but I would have to come back for. But it's what blew me away, because the thing is, like with him and Martin, they put YouTube videos up. There is like kind of info about the boulders, but the routes is just on another level. So every like sector we went to with Adam, he's like, oh yeah, here's an HC plus, another HC plus, an AB plus. So I did this one, and there's so many hard routes, and none of which have been repeated. So I was a repeat of two of them, the two 9As that I posted about at Holstein. One of them, Perla Východa, I think.
Perla Východu.
Adam first ascended that when he was 14, and I found it absolutely desperate. Like, it's quite a few days. I even had to go where I dropped the finishing hold. Like, I slapped it and just didn't have the like strength to hold the big ledge basically, and fell off. But the moves are hard, that's the thing. And it's one of those ones where I was thinking, you know, I'm sure if it was like in Sierrana or Margalef, you know, and it was done now, I don't see why it wouldn't be given 9A plus. And then I'm just like, Adam climbed this when he was 14. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, seeing the sort of the root level anyway was pretty inspiring.
Yeah, about that, and I mean, we should get back to, you said Terra Nova briefly, and also you tried the Vasil, if that's how you say it, Vladek?
Vasil, yeah.
I read that you tried them both briefly, but you still have to tell us about it. How was Vasil?
Okay, so yeah, if we start with that. So I genuinely only had one go on it. I was planning to have more, but then kind of the way stuff worked out with conditions and skin, I ended up not getting back on. But I found even the easy climbing on it hard, because it starts off with like a couple like fairly hard moves. You get to like some good jogs. You have like a clip of jogs up to where the crux starts, which is off a good hold. But even some of the moves between the jogs were kind of like pretty big, and I was like struggling to span them. So I was like, that even those moves could be like adding a fair bit. And then kind of the important bit, I guess, the crux is, it felt like you needed to have firstly like perfect conditions, because the holds are appalling. Like the first hold is, because it's not like they're even basic. The first hold's like a little dish, like little circle dish with two little tiny edges on the side, and you kind of just get two fingers and crimp around it, and it's probably like a 8 mil sort of hold. So like really bad, and you have to. But I suppose before you get to, you kick like a really wide heel, which I could get on, but again, I was never able to like kick it on well, so it always felt like you were just going to be wrong. You go to then what was actually an okay but really sloping, crimpy like pinch edge, and then you bump again, like the final move, the crux. You go to this sloping crimp, which I was kind of hoping would be better than it was, but like to just pull onto it and like do the move to the better hold was desperate. So like that, like I know it's short, but as like an individual boulder, like for sure, as Adam was saying, it would be at least 8B plus. It felt really hard, and yeah, I felt like I would need to come in winter to have like a chance of actually attempting it.
All right. Are you planning to?
I mean, I'm really psyched to go back. I've got a lot of stuff I didn't finish off, so yeah, I liked for Terra Nova, the boulder. I tried that a lot more, because there's also an 8B plus that starts like kind of, because Terra Nova traverses, and there's an 8B plus boulder that starts kind of in the middle and goes up. Here's free of the moves of Terra Nova, so it made sense to try, but I wasn't actually able to do that one. Like those middle moves in Terra Nova, which involve like a really thin slot crimp and like a terrible pinch sloper, and I could get close, but like Terra Nova felt more possible than the Vasil, but yeah, still like I needed a lot more training for it.
Right. It sounds like it's a question of both adapting to the style, which you probably already have because it's a little bit similar, I guess, to what you're used to, but also conditions must be absolutely right to send those super hard things, I guess, as well.
I think just because the holds are so small on those ones, whereas on the other ones, if the holds being a bit bigger, like we did have some good conditions days, and even on those days, I feel like I wouldn't have been strong enough for Terra Nova. But for like the other one, which is the extension into one of the 8Cs I did, Iceberg, that like I thought I would have a chance of doing, but probably not in the time that I had left.
What was the best thing you climbed there, you think? What did you like the most?
The route for sure. Perla, say it wrong again, but Perla
Východu.
Yeah.
And you climbed the Kostěny Smrtelný as well, right?
Yeah, so that was really fun, and that suited my style a lot more. Although, again, like what I was saying, the nature of the rock, my first go on it, I was there just with my girlfriend, and I couldn't work out half the moves. It felt completely ridiculous. Went back with Adam the next day and like got all the exact beta, and even then it still felt really hard. But I think day 3 I was then able to send it, and on this, like when it came together, it wasn't as bad, but because it's like 16 moves of just power endurance, which is far more my sort of thing. Whereas for Perla, it's like it goes a full height of the crag, and it's like boulder rest all the way up, which is not so much my style, I guess. But I got through the crux move, I think 3 times in the end. Once where I fell in the last move, once where I fell like just after it, and the go where I even sent it, it was like right at the limit. Like I managed to clip the chain, go to like match the finishing hold, and then like just basically fell off there anyway. But the moves on it were really good, and like the first crux, you're using this big sloping sort of dish, which is like super tensiony through the feet, and it's not so like you're pulling really hard, but it's not just pulling. Like there's so much more going on, and I think the climbing actually is really good on it. So I think that was definitely the highlight.
And what do you think about the grades compared to the things you've done in Britain and elsewhere?
I think the grades boulder wise were like pretty good. Like there, of course, were some that were maybe a bit soft and some that were harder. But I think the boulders were like pretty spot on, whereas the routes just felt like they were crazy. Like I don't know, because originally Perla was given 8C plus, I think, because it was Adam was saying it was the first route above 8C in Raymondcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kossier had an extra hold on it, to be fair, which is broken off, but it was originally given 8C. And then, like, speaking to Adam, he was like, super hesitant about upgrading these things. And then one of the other routes I tried, Uomi, is given 8C plus now. And Adam was saying, originally only gave it 8C. So I'm not sure it deserves 8C plus. But they're all absolutely desperate. Like, I don't think anyone's going to come over and be able to just walk up any of them. So, yeah, they all felt like they were pretty tough on the grade. But I do get the other side that when you put the effort in and you work them, they do unlock themselves a bit.
I guess it's always like that with the style that's at least slightly different to what you're used to. And my guess is that since you could climb so many 8Cs, is that's because they're there.
This was one of the things before coming. I was so excited to check out the bottom wall of Holstein because it's like 5 to 8 meters wide, and there's 6 8C and above boulders on it. That's just like completely dense. I mean, first off, like to have a bit of rock that hard, and also to have had obviously strong enough climbers to come and develop that, it's just like it doesn't really happen. Well, I don't think it has happened anywhere else. So there's probably only that many 8C boulders in the whole of the UK. Like
no, not even on the Kilter board, I don't think.
Actually, why did you went to Czech Republic? Did Adam invite you, or you?
Yeah, I've just always been really interested to go. Like there's always been a huge mystery behind it, especially with routes with boulders like Terra Nova and routes like Vasil. I've just always been intrigued by them, like to know actually what they're like, because every other sort of hard route in the world, pretty much someone else has gone and tried, at least in the first ascent, and there's information about it. There might be a couple photos, but for like Vasil, there's I think 3 photos and there's 5 seconds of video, and that's it. Like no other info. Everyone just knows it's desperate. And I don't know, like I've just always been so curious to see actually what the holds are like and just what the route's like. So like those two were for sure probably the biggest driving factors in wanting to come over. And I guess also is to do something different and not like because I was debating I have a route I want to project in Spain, and end of last year I was debating whether to do that or actually just dedicate training to then come to the Czech, and I think I definitely made the right choice because it was the climbing's just genuinely really good, I thought. And then checking out like the north area, I was completely blown away by how good the climbing is up there. So yeah, I as I was saying, I really want to go back. So
what route was it that you wanted to try in Spain?
So I wanted to go and put like a lot of time into Perfectamundo and see how I got on with that. So I had one go on that in 2021 and did, I think, all but the 2 mono moves in the lower section. I didn't do the top slab. I stopped at the end of the roof, but I felt like that's a route that I would have a good chance of like coming back to because the top wall suits me pretty well, or the half of the route suits me pretty well. And I would just have to train, I think, for the mono really. So
right. So do you have sort of a plan now to go climb and try a lot of like super hard routes, the 9B pluses, the maybe 9Cs, and to sort of build a base for your own first ascents?
Yeah, I mean, I've got like a lot of stuff that I want to develop in Scotland on the boulder front, and there's a couple routes I know that would be awesome to do, but yeah, I feel like I need to I definitely need to go and try a lot more already established hard routes. Like, I feel like boulder wise after this trip, and last year I went for a couple of weeks to Switzerland, I feel like I know pretty well where like grades sit and kind of what's going on with that, whereas with routes I still feel like I don't have that much knowledge, so I'd like to go and continue sort of developing that and doing more hard routes, just so that, as you say, a bigger base to compare to and go from there.
You climbed Hubble, and then you get the King Capella, which you put up in Spain, and the Brandenburg Gate. Which one felt more significant? Like 1 at the time and 2 now?
So like Hubble, when I did it, felt very significant. Like I was really like, because I was quite young, it was like a very big deal for me. Because where I grew up in Edinburgh, the wall that used to exist there, Alien Rock 2, it's where Malk Smith used to train for quite a long time. He was like Scotland's by far like strongest climber. He won World Cups, and there were like 3 things that were sort of important. It was doing 158 on the campus board because the rungs have like bigger spacing there. So that was what he did. And then an 8B plus boulder, Monk Life, that he first sent to Northumberland. And then Hubble was the other thing. And they were like the 3 things that like kind of had everyone in the centre psyched all the time. So yeah, Hubble was the last of those 3 that I did. And like it was like kind of completing that sort of trilogy. And I don't know, for me it meant a lot. But King Capella definitely, I think, meant more when I sent it, and still now, because it's kind of like what I've always been training for. So until the last couple of years, I've pretty much always trained on a 30-degree board on really small crimps. And King Capella is kind of similar angle, really small crimps. At least the way I climbed it with all the drop knees is like my like dream style, the jump at the end of the crux. Like it's such like a perfect route for me that I was so incredibly psyched to actually like find out it was possible and then be able to put it together. So I think that definitely meant the most. I think Brandenburg Gate was a little disappointing when it actually came together, because the first couple sessions with all the history behind it, everyone just assuming it was like next level hard. It was, and the first couple sessions where I couldn't do a lot of the moves, I was like, oh wow, this could be like next big project. But then actually, when I like worked out the sequence, it just unlocked. Like as soon as I did the last move I hadn't done once, the next session I sent the route and it just came together way faster. So,
watching the video of you climbing the Brandenburg Gate, the sequence, it looks so obvious. Apparently it's not. I mean, people have been trying this for a long time, but it looks so natural.
Yeah, that it's a weird one, because every move of the crux and all the hard moves, you've got a couple ways where you could envision like different hand sequences. There's about 3 hand sequences for each of the hard moves, because there are other holds. And then you've got about 8 to 10 foot sequences for each of those moves, like different hands. So it was trying to find the right combination of stuff to actually make it work. But when it does work, as you say, the route flows really nicely. The climbing is really good, and it works really well. But it weirdly, like I would go, I don't know how many sessions in the end, maybe like 8 sessions to work all the beta, but I would just go by myself and spend like 2 hours like on a rope at the bolt, just like swinging around, trying every sort of conceivable thing. Yeah, it was an odd one, and it kind of, I feel like if more strong climbers maybe had to spend a lot more time on it, whereas I think it was tried, but not that seriously. I think people would have a look at it, oh, this is desperate, and kind of leave it, whereas I think it needed just a bit more dedication.
But it is also, I mean, it's so short. It's more of a boulder, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. So it's very similar to Hubble, where Hubble's meant to be like a 8B plus boulder, whereas I mean with the knee pads now it might be more like 8B. I think I jumped on it the other day to see what it was like with knee pads. But Brandenburg I think is probably around that 8B plus 8C level boulder. And basically once you've done the boulder you shouldn't fall. You join the end of an 8C route, but it's like after the hard climbing, so there are moves you could blow it on, but you'd be pretty bummed. in like the spirit of Raventor and all the like not eliminate, but link up lines that have been done, I've been looking at linking it into other routes. So I was trying a link the other day of linking essentially the crux moves of Brandenburg, but then you like match one of the holds and you go left into the final crux undercut of Hubble. So then you do the final like crux move of Hubble where you slap to the dish, which I think would probably maybe make it like a 9B or something. It's a bit silly, but like, and for sure you could link it all the way to the top of the crag. Like there's routes that go on 25 meters above it, but they wouldn't unfortunately change the difficulty. I don't think they just basically add climbing, which could be fun to do, but they're probably better routes to do from the ones that keep them consistent, if you know what I mean.
But was this the last famous problem line to fall at Raventor?
Yeah, definitely. It's like the last line of new bolts that have been climbed. There's one or two blank walls left that could be bolted, but I don't really think there are holds. And there's definitely nothing really famous left. Like I did the other day, I did another 9A, but it's just it's start 2 moves lower on a 1 move boulder problem. Those starts to a boulder problem and then goes into a route. So there's not really king lines left. Well, I mean, the thing is, I'm still psyched to try these silly link ups.
And on that same note, really about significant ascents, you also repeated Mutation a while back, which had gone unrepeated for 23 years or something, I think.
22 years. Steve climbed it the month before I was born.
Wow. Well, that's something, huh?
Yeah, so that's pretty wild. It's one of those completely baffling routes where it has been tried a lot. It's had a lot of strong people put a lot of time and sessions into it, and like a lot of years for multiple people. Adam briefly tried it one day. I think he had a go on it. Alex Magos has had quite a few goes on it now. And it was like kind of hyped like for repeating it at the time. Is it like, was it the world's first 9B when it was done? But actually, when you climb it, it doesn't feel so bad, and you kind of finally understand what Steve was saying, where he was like, "Oh no, I don't even think it's that far above 9A," because I took 9A plus for it.
Yeah,
it was like over 4 years, like 40 odd sessions or something. But it's just one of those things that it's just a difficult route to climb, which meant unless you're there consistently, putting the time in consistently, and you get lucky one day with everything being right, like the conditions and skin, you won't climb it. If you go there in bad conditions, I would be shocked if anyone could climb it. So it's just one of those routes that I think was super difficult, and because of that, just went unrepeated for such a long time.
So what makes it so difficult, like, to climb then? Is it that the moves are low percentage, or well, conditions obviously, but
yeah, it's a mix of everything. So there are low percentage moves. It's a very consistent route. So, and because it's very consistently hard, like by the end I could chalk up in a few places, but that was after years. Whereas in general, it's very hard to stop on any individual move. Like you clip and you keep going, which means you can't really chalk up. So if your hands are sweaty, you're going to eventually slip off a bit higher up. If it's too cold, you can't like warm your hands up, so you'll go numb. So you need it to be in like the right temperature for you to not get sweaty and not get cold hands. Obviously that varies, I guess, for people to people. And because the holes are so small, it's also really easy just to like ping off them. Even when it feels right and conditions are good and you've got good skin, you can still just like ping off them, or your foot could pop really easily. So it's just, there's so many factors that just make it really easy to just fall off, that then it's trying to get all of them to just align and get like the last, or at least with the sequence I use. But to be fair, Steve's sequence in the top crux also had a low percentage move, but the very last move, essentially of hard climbing, I fell off. And all you do is you go from like a pretty terrible edge, but you just go over the top of it to a jug. But it's like a pocket slot, and you could just miss it. I had one go where I missed it. It's like the most heartbreaking moment. You could fall off like a really good hole that you know you'll climb to the top from. And it was everything like that. Even once you'd done all the hard climbing, you could still just blow it. So yeah, it's just one of those routes that.
But then again, like a route that demands perfect skin and perfect conditions is super easy to fall off at any time, and isn't that what constitutes a really difficult route, which is a hard grade? Like
yes, it is, but when you actually do it, it doesn't feel that bad.
that's like climbing a slab. Like either you stand on the holes or you don't. Like
Yeah. So I was gonna say, like, it's kind of like grit climbing. A lot of times you go to the crag, try something, it just feels ridiculous, and then you'll go back on like a perfect day, and you'll have the right body position, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this isn't so bad. And I don't know. So it is an odd one where it'd be easy to say it's really hard. Chances are it won't get repeated for a while, probably again, or if it does, it'll be by someone that puts a lot of effort in. And they probably wouldn't argue with a high grade, but at the same time, it just, I don't know. When you actually send it, you don't feel like it's maybe justified.
No, I totally understand. It's just that if you were to say this was the first 9B ever, or even harder, I don't know, more people would be attracted to actually trying it and working it, right?
Yeah,
Because of the historical value. Like
yeah.
it's always like that.
It's a funny one because I debated it a long time because I was for a lot, like when I was first trying the first couple of years, I was like, oh yeah, for sure it's 9A plus. Everyone has already accepted it's not 9A. Then after like a couple of years, I was like, oh, maybe it's harder. Maybe it is like 9B, but it is just when you actually send it, it just comes together so well that you're like, I kind of understand. Because like chatting to Steve, even now, I had him back on it last year, and he was still able to like repeat, I think, pretty much all the moves pretty fast. And it's just one of those routes that it just, like, obviously coming from the ground's harder, but then when you have it in that style that's dialed, like it kind of just works. And yeah, Steve was saying he even now thought, maybe it's 9A plus, maybe it's still only 9A, which to me is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think you explained it quite well, actually. What's your honest thoughts on John Gaskins? Was it the real deal?
So this is a really hard thing because there's not obviously concrete proof of stuff. It's kind of hard to give a verdict when I've never met him, I've never seen him climb, and I've only tried a handful of his things. Like Brandenburg Gate, the way that people remember his sequence. People said that they had watched him do that, and if that's the case, then he must be incredibly strong. Because I tried that sequence a lot, and it doesn't. I mean, it does work, but not in like sort of the relative strength that I envision doing the whole thing. And then looking at routes so I've looked at a couple of his boulders, like Il Pirata. Sure, it's possible. I think it's probably about the right grade, is what he said. Around 8C. I don't know why you'd really be psyched to try it because it is like 1.5 feet off the ground. So a lot of the stuff I look at and I think, it is possible, and I never got to see him climb, so it's really hard to give, to be like, oh, I believe or I don't believe, because unless you've actually seen stuff, I guess. Like, for sure now, if someone was claiming these things and they didn't have a video, I'd be very much like, why? Like, everyone's got a phone now. You can just put it down and record if you want. So, yeah, I think it's a different world now, but I can't really comment on the stuff, I guess.
I guess it's the kind of thing that you can still wish it was true,
Yeah. Yeah, like, because there's one of the boulders which I've not looked at, but I really want to look at this year, Shadow Play, which everyone I know that's ever looked at it has gone, it's impossible. It's impossible. There's no way he did it. But it's one of those things I want to look at. And if it is that hard, but he did actually climb it, it's like, well, we had the best boulder in the world, probably doing the hardest boulder that's, like, it probably was a 9A and 9A plus boulder. It's like, that's pretty special. So yeah, it's kind of one of those things you'd definitely like to be true. But
and so competition climbing, you are not competing this year or?
No. So yeah, it's, I guess, a long story, but basically I've been on the GB team like from juniors to seniors for like 10 years now, not a bit longer. And for many reasons it's not ever straightforward or easy, I guess. And I just felt like I needed to take a break from it, basically to do like that's one of the reasons I went to the Czech. Like I was saying, I've always wanted to go, but I always felt like I didn't have the time. I had other things I had to do, and it was like I wanted to take a break from the comps and everything else. Just be like, you know what? Actually, I want to do this. Let's just train, spend like the first half of this year training, and then go and do that. I'm definitely not like certain on whether I'll compete more or I won't. That's still open. I'm basically seeing how this year's going and seeing how I feel, because I'm still obviously would be incredibly psyched to try and go to an Olympics, even if the format is completely different to competitions I've known for the last 10 years.
Right.
But the sort of the idea of the Olympics is still cool. But I achieved, in a vague sense of the word, basically everything I wanted to in competition, or I didn't achieve it and I can't. Like my biggest goal was for sure to go to the Tokyo Olympics. So then not qualifying for that was pretty like a bit of a bummer. So it's just taking a break this year and seeing what's happening.
One of my best memories from competition climbing is you in Chamonix in the final 2019. I've never seen anyone like enjoy the moment like you did there in the actual final. That was so good to see.
Thanks. Yeah, that I mean that was like for sure a highlight of my life. I think like it's one of those things where it doesn't mean as much from like specific like I put so much into this moment as like climbing King Capella, but of like an experience, I think I'll struggle to find somebody in my life from now on that will top that final experience, because like Chamonix having like 15,000 people or something in the crowd, and just being there in the night, like in the dark, just on the wall, like doing well on a route, like everything coming together. That was incredible. So yeah, I was definitely enjoying that.
It was a great experience for everyone, I think, who was there. Do you think that your results have like accurately reflected your level in competition climbing? Do you think you reached what you should have reached, so to speak?
Yes and no. So for lead climbing, I think so. Like every year I competed, I consistently got better, which is how I felt in my training. And I consistently I never achieved any of my competition goals for a long time, which was quite sad. Like in youth, I basically had the goal of like winning a youth competition. That was like all I wanted to do, whether it be a Worlds or European. And no matter what happened, I always like either just messed up completely in the final or came second or something. So I've got like from like the junior side in the GB team, I think I have the most medals, but I never won anything. I had a comp where in Norway I even topped all the routes and I still didn't win, which was a bit. And then in seniors, it's been in lead like hard to get into it. The first couple of years, I had a lot of really bad results, but then 2019. I had the goal of making every semi-final, and I achieved that, and that was like I was so psyched for that. I made 2 World Cup finals as well, came 4th in both of them, and my main senior goal's always been to win a World Cup. And in the Briançon 2019 final, I had my foot slip 2 moves from first place, and obviously I didn't win, but in my head, like actually good enough on the day, knowing that I could have done it is like enough, and I felt like I achieved that. So wherever that was a weird moment where I kind of was like, it then put all the focus on the Olympics, because I felt like I had achieved what I wanted to in World Cups. Whereas I guess on the flip side in bouldering, it's not gone well. Like 2019, I was probably the most consistent athlete that competed. I was always basically within this couple positions, and it was always just out of semi-finals. Yeah. I dropped always the last move of a boulder that would have put me into semis, which was pretty like brutal. I just struggled a lot with the style. Like I'd come out flash forward, drop the last move, the 5th boulder, not make it in, which happened a few times and was a bit like. But then coming to like 2020, so end of 2019, like in Toulouse, I had an amazing at the special selection event for the Olympics. I had an amazing boulder round. Top first 3. again dropped the last move of the fourth that would have put me into into finals. But actually did really well in it. And then the next comp I did, like the Europeans out in Moscow, I had like a perfect round where I flashed all 4 boulders ahead of like people that have won World Cups who didn't even do all the boulders and stuff. So I definitely felt like I've been getting there in the boulder, but it's been a much longer journey. Whereas in the lead, I feel like the results probably have reflected pretty well where I've been at.
Dropping that last move on that important problem so many times or a few times, do you think that's mostly physical or mental?
It's a hard one because it's for sure a mix of both. Like I'm sure I'd be lying if I said, "Oh, it's physical." Like I messed, because I always just drop the last move of things. Like I say, I dropped the last move of that 9A, and I dropped basically the end. So the first 8C I did in the Czech drift, it finishes by doing a 7C boulder, which is still a 7C boulder, and I dropped that boulder twice. But like Adam thought that was pretty funny, and he was just like, he just didn't understand how I could fall there after doing all the hard climbing. I was like, it's still hard, so I definitely think there's like a mental side to it, but I don't know quite what goes wrong a lot of the time. Like for instance in Toulouse, it was I think a mix of like the foot slipping, because it was a slab, foot slipping, and maybe just not quite having the right friction in the hand. But I feel like in the boulder comps, it's never been like, I never feel at the time that it's a mental thing. Like I get there and I go, oh no, it's the last move, but it must be a factor.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, I think, to contemplate, like what's what really. Do you feel right now that you're pushing your true limits, or yet, or are you? Is that something for the future? And those limits of yours, how do them compare to others? I think.
So I don't think I'm at like my limit yet. So every year, basically, I felt like I've improved. And in the last 6 months to a year, I feel like the level I've been at has gone up like drastically. Just from basically changing the style of what like boards and stuff and steepness and how I've trained. So maybe not like in my specific style I've got better, but like overall I've got way better. So I feel like I've still got a lot of room to improve and sort of just going into stuff that I've been weak at in the past. So I definitely think I've got like, I'd like to think a couple of years still where I can make some serious gains. I guess level compared to others is like a hard one because it's who you compare it to. I feel like I'll never get close to the sort of endurance levels of Boan or Adam, but I think on like basic strength stuff or like in my specific like strong styles, I think it can definitely be up there with like the top in the world, which is cool. And I like to think that I'd be able to do some of the like the hardest boulders or routes if I like can train really hard and dedicate my time to them.
At your physical peak at 27, I think. That's what they say anyway. I guess it varies, but and then you have experience as well. So I think you got a good number of years to still improve.
I hope so. And this was the thing with Tokyo. I was one of the youngest sort of people that made it through, like because I was ranked 9th in the combined overall in 2019, and I was definitely like one of the youngest up there. And then for sure, obviously Alberto from Spain ended up winning, and he's younger than me again. But when you look at lead World Cups, a lot of people winning still are like Adam, Jakob, Magos, and they're all quite a bit older. So I feel like if I do come back to comps, I've hopefully still got time that I'll be able to maybe get that medal in the end.
You mentioned Paris. Obviously, you said that you'd still really love to compete in Paris, and I think you said somewhere that you think the style will change of routes until then. How do you think that style will change?
So with the way they're scoring now, or the proposed new scores and stuff, I think it gives a lot of incentive for setters to basically make routes not necessarily short, but I think shorter in a way as well, but essentially like just like not that bad, where you just climb really quickly through the start, to then like hard boulder problems high up on the route, to be able to actually split and get good point disparity. So I feel like for me, like the routes I've always done the best on are semi-final rounds in World Cups, where the route's just brutal all the way, like they've overcooked the level. And if you like the first final I made, Chamonix 2018, I got, I think, halfway up the route and made finals. And they're the routes I do the best, because it's like that power endurance element of just like 2 minutes on the wall, you just go hard move to hard move. And that's similar to like the routes I've done out in Spain. Whereas the style being potentially kind of reversed, where you have potentially still fast climbing, but you have to be completely fresh up to then a really hard boulder, is something that I think would be a lot harder for me, and I need to train very specifically for it. That being said, they might not. They might still go with the consistent routes, but I feel like it could potentially screw people that have a foot slip, or if they like overcook a move too low, it could completely destroy the scoring. So it'll be interesting to see what they do this year and going forward. Yeah.
I think personally, I prefer routes that, as a spectator, that are really hard from the first move, because otherwise it's, that the first 30 moves or something, it's just might as well go get a coffee or tea.
Yeah, I'm the same, and it's always a bit sad when you're actually at a venue as well at a competition, and if semi-finals are probably worse than finals, but when someone gets really high, then everyone else is going up the first half of the route. Say if someone gets up the head wall, basically no one's going to cheer for them through the whole bit, and no one's really that interested. They get interested in the last like 5-10 that means something, and it is always a bit kind of sad to see like there not be the same enthusiasm. So I think having like a route which is hard all the way, is you can easily blow it on a lot of moves, keeps it entertaining for everyone watching, and is, I think, better as a competitor as well.
I also think you should skip the viewing.
Yeah, that'd be
like
cool.
Everyone should view for themselves. Like that would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
I think that's because that's a skill, I think, to read the route.
Yeah, definitely. Like I'm pretty good at flashing. But then on-sighting, like for me, is definitely way harder, and I think it would be like a cool thing to have that, especially as it would also then favor teams that, like, it wouldn't necessarily just favor the strong teams that have like 10 competitors, or teams that, so the people that potentially come from countries that can't afford to send a big team, they maybe have like one athlete there or something, and it gives everyone a lot more of an equal playing field. Whereas like at the start of the season, where they had the photos in ISO and Merrigan,
bouldering,
that have past World Cup winners and like 10 athletes that can just look at it. It's like, I know they changed that, but in routes it's kind of similar. It's definitely a lot more fair, I think, if everyone would be like on the same level. I agree with that, actually. That's good.
Training. How do you train at the moment? Do you like have some specific training plan which you follow, or you just train how you feel?
Yeah, I guess train how I feel, but I've been like doing pretty consistently what I think I've been needing to work on. So essentially, like doing the 2 days on, 1 day off, it's just like to basically train for power. So doing like less time on the wall, because I used to train like 4 days on or something, and then 1 day off, or like farm like almost every day of the week. But that's really good for, I think, for more on the endurance side. Whereas currently, because I know that I just needed to get physically stronger, like I've fingerboarded for years, and I felt that my finger strength is good enough. Like any gains that I get on a fingerboard aren't going to translate that well, because adding on an extra like percent to what something is like way higher than other parts of my climbing probably won't change much. Whereas actually getting on like a steep board and doing these hard shoulder moves and compression stuff, it's like, if I can get my shoulders, can probably quite easily get 20% stronger, which I think they probably have in the last year. So I've basically been focused on what I know are my weak points, and then just keeping the training consistent to try and just fix them, I guess.
What are your weak points? What's that?
So for sure, I've got a lot better, but like pinches have been a massive one. So there's like problems on the board I train at, which, you know, are the same grade or easier than the crimp lines that I was able to do almost straight away. And these ones like took, you know, like a month or two each to be able to do them. And like now, like I've been able to like do them all in a session and feel pretty strong on them. So I feel like I've got a lot better, but I still feel like pinches and slopers are definitely lacking behind my crimps. And I still think I could get more explosive like in my shoulders and be able to do like some like more powerful moves. But I think in like static moves and positions I feel really strong, but I feel like I'm not quite balanced yet with the powerful ones. So I'm normally training in Ben Moonswall, the schoolroom. And yeah, for the last like year I've basically been pretty much just training on the old school 50-degree board that they have. I find that's been like, because like what I was saying, I've basically always trained on a 30-degree board, which is what we had in Edinburgh, and then changing it to a much steeper board is like completely transformed my climbing. I think like I've got way stronger at steeper stuff, which is where I definitely used to lack. So it's been really cool doing that. So I basically do most of my training in there and then go for actual climbing sessions at Climbing Hangar, which is a wall which is like 20-minute walk from where I am.
And how much do you train?
So because I've been basically for like going to the Czech, I've just been training strength. I've been doing 2 days on, 1 day off. But like at least the first day of training could be up to like 6 hours of climbing. Board climb for like 3-4 hours sometimes, and then do like campus, like long campus boulders after for a couple hours.
How's your skin?
Yeah, so I have pretty wet skin, so it like will tear, and like I don't really get splits, but I'll just tear a massive flapper off all the time. So I train a lot of the time in tape. Like I've had quite a few sessions this year where I've had like all 8 fingers taped, which definitely makes climbing hard, but you can still train with it, so it's not so bad. Just sucks a bit.
If you projecting some route, do you recreate some moves on the wall to train for it, or?
I have done for Rain Shadow, my first 9A, for Hubble as well. And Mutation, I tried doing that, but it didn't annoyingly make any difference. And for then everything else currently, I don't think I've been recreating anything. But I will like set a replica for Perfectamundo if I decide to try that this winter to train for it. But basically, because I've been doing like more of like general sort of stuff, like I knew I had to get better at pinches, so I've just spent a lot of time doing different pinch blocks rather than having like an individual thing.
Again, the skin factor, is that actually something that you consider when a weakness, like that your skin is not optimal?
No, it definitely, a lot of the time I do feel like it lets me down, but you know, it's definitely not the worst skin out there. And it's just meant that I've had to adapt from training with tape so much. I've got fairly good at learning how it feels and stuff, and I've climbed a lot of my hardest ascents. I have tape on fingers. It's just something that I've kind of got used to because I don't, I guess, have the option to, if I want to do something, like if I go on a trip for 2 weeks to try one thing, realistically I'm going to be climbing in tape, because otherwise I would have like 2 or 3 sessions, and that would be the whole time, because I need to spend so much time waiting for it to heal. The only times where it's been made a difference are for routes like Mutation or Voyager on the grit, an 8B boulder I did at the beginning of this year, which is like super skin and conditions. It needs to be cold, and you're basically on tiny crystals, and that it was really frustrating for me to try, because it's like you get at max 8 goes in a session and you've split probably 1 or 2 fingers, and you have to take a couple days before trying it to make sure you have enough skin, and then afterwards you're going to be climbing in tape for like a week or at least. It was like, it's one of those things that sometimes it feels like a big negative and sort of let down, but I guess overall then the fact that I'm training in tape and getting stronger that way is probably helps when I have to use tape. So
you're not super psyched on getting back on Voyager sit, I guess?
No. Like, again, it'd be cool to do, but After doing the stand, I got straight on the same day. I got straight on the sit, gave it one go, and made it up to the crux move of the stand, and felt like I had a decent chance. And I was just, because of that, because I felt like I could do it almost in, like, if I had one lucky session, I was like, I didn't feel like it'd be like a big project that was like, I was super psyched to commit a lot of time to, where it could just be like a small project which I have to commit a lot of time to.
That's right.
Take away from good other training sessions and stuff. So maybe next year, but I'm not.
Do you plan any trips, like, for some specific problems for this year? Do you have something in your mind?
Not really currently. Like the Czech trip was the main thing. As I was saying, maybe I'm not sure, but I maybe might commit to trying Perfectamundo in the winter, which I train for. I've got stuff in Scotland I really want to develop, boulder wise, but just it's a nightmare for a few reasons. Basically, you have to go in winter because otherwise there'll be too many, like, midges, we call them, like mini mosquitoes. And ticks. The problem with winter is it rains a lot. So, like, I was up for over a month, over like December to January, and I didn't get a single day I could go to even like to get to the boulders. It was just so wet. So that's frustrating, but like that's like a big goal of mine, is to develop some hard stuff in Scotland.
Do you follow the competition scene now? If you are not competing, do you watch the competitions, or you are just like off the?
I watched Merrigan because I was at Climbing Wall and it was on for the semi-finals. I actually really enjoyed it, and we kind of skipped through the finals, I think, and then I watched the finals of Seoul, but I didn't watch semi-finals. I still look at the results, but it's kind of a weird one where it's like with the youth competitions. Once you, like, when you're doing them, you're like so interested. You always look at every scoreboard, every result, know exactly what's happening. And as soon as I'd moved into seniors, I was looking at the youth going, I don't even like know half the competitors. So I'm still interested, but it's not been like I need to be here to watch it.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. And I for one, like I said, really hope to see you back on the scene.
Thanks a lot for having me. And yeah, I hope I wasn't like rambling too much and everything makes
sense. That would be impossible.
It was great. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.